I'm Ben Record.
And this is Leah, and we are going to be talking about our digital marketing services.
Digital marketing services.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about where SiteSavvy started originally with our marketing services and just kind of get to the point of where it is right now.
A little bit of a background kind of on how we got to, or from, a website-only company to really working more in the digital marketing space and helping businesses capture more of their business through that digital space.
And also how to use machine learning intelligently.
Yeah.
It's a buzzword that is misused a lot, but
And some AI.
there's actually some really neat use cases. So I'm excited about that.
So let me kick us off. When I first joined SiteSavvy back in 2019, right?
Is it?
Yeah.
COVID?
Yeah.
Before COVID, pre-COVID.
Pre.
So back in 2019, I had been with a previous company called Propeller. Propeller with a 3 instead of the E, if you guys can figure that out. I won't tell you
Fancy.
where. But we offered a service that was basically helping businesses with their marketing and trying to do it at the most cost-effective entry into the market. And when I came and joined SiteSavvy, we added that on as a service.
Yeah.
That service was the bare nuts and bolts of what a business should be doing to keep an active social influence. What's the word?
Presence, we call
Yeah,
it
presence. Yeah, social presence.
SEO. Get
And
some
so we
content out
were
there.
really not doing a lot.
Yeah.
But a lot of people at that point weren't really fully sold on the value of social. Or was there as much success with social at that point? I mean, social influencers have really grown since 2019 a lot, especially with COVID. I mean, the number of social media influencers that are millionaires are only from the last couple of years for the most part.
Right.
So when we joined in, we were kind of looking at how do we take what a company already is doing and make it into social content. The biggest issue we were running into for most of our clients was, one, they didn't have good photography. They didn't have good images for us to use because back then, social content for the most part was some type of image with some type of brand put on that image with words and a caption around it.
Yep.
So we started offering to our clients, we'll create posts for you a couple a week, every month, and you'll pay us a management fee for it. But we were charging such a low amount, we could never provide new photos. We could never really help with the content writing. We pretty much only had to work on the management side of that.
Yep.
And that's where it kind of hit a wall after a certain point. We would see some growth with clients, we would see some success, but then the content was reused or the content grew stale.
Right.
The load of generating enough new content from a busy business owner has always been an Achilles heel. We've struggled with that when it comes to just basic website content. That's the most common reason that a website launch gets delayed is we're just waiting for content on services
Always.
and products and things.
Yeah.
It's the reason that the social media slowed down. We were never fans of canned content, so we really wanted something from the client, but they're super busy.
Yeah, and it wasn't realistic for us to be meet with us once a week to capture content from you.
Right.
Or was it feasible for us to be we'll have a photographer on standby to go out to your job sites or to your client meetings or whatever, because that's not realistic. And most of the time your life doesn't work that way, to plan those things out accordingly and to have the perfect photo shoots to happen. And that's where content luckily has also shifted a lot since then. Photo content's grown a lot more stale, and that's where what we're doing right now is that video content, where you're getting the snippets, where you're getting the different pieces you can pull together into a bigger marketing angle and a storyline that people can follow along with.
Yeah.
So that was where that was a major thing we didn't offer, but I think was also probably why our services kind of died off, and we stopped offering that services. It wasn't necessarily a failure. We just didn't feel like we could offer a good enough service to charge the money we were charging, nor did we have the solution to charge more
Right.
for the better service.
Right.
Now we do.
Yeah, and a lot of that did come from, I think the content piece, right? We struggled with that with the first original social media thing is just getting content. And then with the website piece, since, I started doing websites in 2015. When did you start? 2012?
Yeah, basically.
And that has always been the number one issue
Yep.
is simply just getting content. And I feel like I talk about it so much and it just continues to be an issue, but it makes sense, right? Like if we're dealing with business owners and we're dealing with construction workers or whatever their industry is, that's their profession. They're not a writer, they're not an author, they're not, that's not what they do. So to have them say, all right, that's cool, everything that you just said, but now write it down and give it to me.
And the
It's
baffling,
unrealistic.
the baffling thing was that most of us have been involved in networking.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we've done like BNI and stuff. And so what I always knew is that for most of my clients who came through the network, it was easy for them to talk about their business.
Oh,
their,
easy.
And their specialty and whatever they're experts in. They have a lot to say. And so we would have those conversations, and then we would go to doing some marketing or a website or something, and it would be a total block. And it'd be kind of this dichotomy for me of like, well, I know you have all of this messaging to get out into the world.
You have words to say.
How come we can't get this out of you? And I went back to, one of my early partners in an early company was a trained journalist, and he would basically interview clients and just kind of extract the stories out of them. And that always stuck with me. Is like you really have to get them in almost an interview setting, and then get it out of them. And in that setting, they can get a lot out in a short amount of time, actually. But he was also mostly working with like 6-figure clients, so those were larger accounts. They were going to pay a trained journalist for that.
Well, and actually talking about that, that's kind of to where we are today with our marketing services is we started realizing, okay, our business owners can talk. You talk all day to your clients, you talk all day to, your fellow employees and training and all that. So if you can talk, let's put you in front of someone where they can interview you and they can just take what you're saying and put it into words. So we've been having a copywriter work with some of our clients to get content for SEO pages and stuff. And then from that, we turned into, okay, how about we just put them in front of a camera and now actually turn this into a marketing service where we, once a month, we sit you down just like we are right here, right now. Right, once a month, if you can dedicate 1 hour to us, we can put you in front of a camera. And actually from maybe a 15, 20-minute video, that's one piece of content that you can actually turn into 35 different pieces of content. So from one video, you can have now content on all your social platforms for the whole month. So that's where we've kind of gotten okay, let's take the business owner, but we know they don't have a lot of time, and let's give them a topic to talk about. Let's feed them questions, and they only give us an hour, and now I don't have to bug them every single week. I now have content to work with. The dirty job is done. I can actually go there and now create out of that. And I think also I want to stress too that you being the business owner, you have to be the face of your marketing.
Yep.
You can't, there's so many things in your job you can probably offload, but that is the one thing that has to be you.
You really should be the face of your brand.
I mean, it's how many times have you seen those stock images that you're like, you can tell that person's nowhere from where you're talking about. And that's where, like, when you do these videos, you might see me or Skylar or Leah around in town, and you might be like, oh, those are the people that work with Site Savvy, and we can be a little bit more relatable because we have that person with it. The content comes from the words we're saying and the things we're talking about. And I even think about when we kind of first started trying to solve the problem of content was we had a client that had a more elderly person that was part of the business, that they had a lot of knowledge to share, but they were never one of the persons that were going to write it down or take the time to give you some of those words. And so the other partner in the business pleaded us to hey, can you just interview him? Can you just interview him and let's capture some of that on audio? And I don't know what we're going to do with it, but I know we need to capture some of that. Yeah. And that's where our interviews things really built out. Obviously, interview podcasts have grown a lot since then too, but there's people feeling like they're talking to the person, feeling like they're actually interviewing that person a little bit themselves when they listen to the content. And it allows you to talk about a topic and have, like Leah said, multiple posts without it feeling like it's reused.
Yeah.
Because you're actually using different pieces of a conversation that was all about one topic. Instead of one photo of a burnt wall and talking about fire damage repeatedly.
Yeah.
That's what we did when we first started, because we had some really great pictures of burnt walls that clients were fixing for their clients.
So, Leah, do you want to walk us through the process a little bit? Because I love the process.
Yeah.
This is cool.
So this is fun too, because I've been working with Keith a little bit, which, by the way, we're at Caffrey Photo.
Ooh, thanks,
Beautiful
Cafe Photo.
studio.
Thanks.
Highly
Yeah,
recommend.
So learning a little bit more of our systems and stuff while working with Keith. So yeah, and first of all, there's the first month is kind of an onboarding process, and that is a lot of like me getting access to all the social platforms that you have, and especially if you're using like YouTube, then that is like accessed through your Google account, and there's it actually takes a bit, whether that's your Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Google, like Google My Business, YouTube. I think that's about it at this point. Pinterest is becoming a more popular one as well. So yeah, getting access to those, or if you want those new platforms, then I'd be setting that up for you. And along with the onboarding process too, is coming up with an annual marketing calendar for you. So it's a lot of platforms that you need to manage. And, it kind of looks silly too if the event has passed and you still have a register now, but it's like a month old, and it's not a good look. So just having that schedule and having that timeline, I think works for everything. And so with the marketing piece, I'm not leaving out websites. I actually still include websites in that, more from a blogging perspective. So yeah, anyway, in the onboarding process, it's figuring that out, building out that calendar, and then also building out much more detailed monthly calendars like the month before. Because, I could build out a whole annual calendar, but 6 months later, things might change. So, so we do that. And a lot of that is brainstorming with you, figuring out what, say holidays you want to celebrate or don't want to celebrate, what topics you want to talk about for your podcast, what you don't want to talk about.
Is there seasonality to your business? Is there not? Is there
Right.
important times of the year that are way more prevalent to market?
Are there like sales that you push every
sales
year?
is a big one.
Are
Yeah, seasonal sales.
I know Giving Tuesday, for example, that's really big for a lot of nonprofits, and that's what is that? Is that after? That's after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So it's like
Before Christmas, after Thanksgiving. Yeah.
right. So it's Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday, and then
yeah.
Giving Tuesday.
Yeah.
So that would be in the calendar.
We might have done landing pages for all of these a few
Maybe.
times.
Just cute.
Yeah, so, and then also in that first month, we record, your first podcast, if that's what you want to do. And now you don't need to do your podcast. I basically came up with that because we've been doing it. I kind of have an idea of, like, what we should be doing. But if you already have video content, like maybe you've had professional videos taken for your company, and it's, like, awesome drone footage and beautiful, like, scenery shots, then cool, we could totally use that too. But most of the time, a lot of companies don't have that. So if you don't, podcasting is kind of the default that we have. And if you look on TikTok and Instagram, people are constantly scrolling, right? And you can see people will take 30 or 60-second clips from maybe a 20-minute podcast and put that in TikTok or put that in Instagram. And it's always some kind of like juicy little like sound bite, right? That they
The
put
meat
in
of
there.
a piece of a
Right.
conversation.
Yeah.
And you get excited about it, or it maybe answers a question you've had, and you're like, wow, I really want to watch the rest of their podcast because this caught my attention.
Yeah.
Ta-da! Now just do that for the whole month, right? And honestly, that's what we're going to do with this podcast. I'm going to just cut it up and push it out one by one through our social media. So,
Yeah, we're giving you a kind of like an insight to like why we're doing this podcast right here, and then how we'll be using it for our own content to then help sell our services as marketing services.
yeah.
And
So
that's where the AI side kind of comes in. Certain AIs are really good at very, very specific tasks. So, I mean, you've probably changed the list since the last time we talked, but like, if I remember correctly, you've got one that's going to pull out a transcription of the video,
Otter.ai. Yeah.
different one that's going to help kind of organize those thoughts and clean it up for a blog article a little bit, and then we edit that further. Probably that same one is going to help edit the snippets a little bit for a bunch of different individual posts. The podcast is automatically pulled from the audio in this case.
Right.
Plus, don't you have another one that actually splits up the video automatically even?
Yeah, it's like called Munch.com. I've used it a couple times. I'm not sure how much I trust it. I should probably just trust it more, but yeah. There's a lot of things out there.
That's your like video developer back in the day coming out, where you just want to have control over the footage.
I want to know. It's my job, right? AI can't take over everything.
No.
Yeah, you can take over most of it.
But that's where so Leah came to us with this idea of like, I want to do a podcast, and I think in a lot of ways, like October last year,
September.
September, October, and me and Skylar were both like, we need more content for marketing, so sure, let's try it. Like we had no idea what this was going to turn into, and who cares what views we get from our podcasts? We're getting content from this, and that content's led to clients. That content's led to ideas that me and Leah have had for sales. That's turned into like it's developing yourself. And anybody that has a successful podcast never says that it started out successful. It always started out as like a random idea that then continues to develop and you fine tune.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where we're trying to help our clients that would like to have some sort of relationship or presence with their customers or their client base or their nonprofit organization, where they can have some more of the discussions and they can have some more like, who are we and what do we want to say? That's so much more digestible content than buy our service, here's an image of our service.
Yep.
And that's where like we started out,
It's personable.
and now we're like, well, let's just be persons, let's be people, and then let's take content from that.
So that's the meat of it. We've been using this process. Leah's been using this process for our content. Ben and I and Leah are all just super, super busy, and chronically didn't take enough time for our own marketing. And so this has worked well. Like I have to say, for me, Leah schedules me for an hour a month. I show up here. We talk for a little while, and then kind of almost, from my perspective, kind of magically, the videos,
Just
the
magically.
podcast, a couple of blog posts, and a whole bunch of social media posts across like five different social media platforms. They just kind of happen, and I'm like, wow, that was a great use of my time.
Well, and that's the experience we want for our clients too, because how many of us hate having something got to do every week, or like you got to meet with your marketing person to help come up with content for your posts or the words for them, whereas it's like, capture me for an hour and ask me a question, let me talk about it.
Yeah.
That's honestly what a lot of social content should be, where that you're having a client interaction without a client there, where you're talking to them about your services in some sort of way and building on it from there.
And this is what humans do. It's easy to have a conversation. It's hard to write a marketing paper.
Right.
You know, when I reach out to a client and I say, I need you to send me a service page, I never get it. But if I call them up or meet them for coffee and say, tell me about this new service that you're running, oh my God, the floodgates are opened. So a conversation is just a much easier way to approach all of this.
And what's cool too is, we're recording this video right now, and hopefully I can squeeze it into one blog post, but we've done, like our past one with Connect 211, where we talked about, our sister company.
That was fun.
We ended up having over 3,000 words. And you don't normally want to put that many words in a blog post, so we posted one, but we still have a bunch more content that we can now turn that into 2 more blog posts.
Yep.
And then you can connect that to email newsletters, like, hey, we just posted our blog post, or like our podcast, our blog post, whatever. Give you a short summary, click here, go to our website, read about it, watch it, listen to it. It's all connected, right?
Because the content's similar but in different formats, it makes it not seem like the same, repeatable. Like it's a little bit different. So if you're going to read the blog post, you're going to get a different experience of this content that we're making right now versus if you're listening to this
Yeah.
Yeah.
or watching it.
How we talk isn't how we read or write, right? So if we were to take the exact words from our transcription from this podcast and put it into a blog post,
wouldn't
and just
work.
be like, sure, it looks good. It does not read well. It reads horribly, actually. So we have to restructure it, re-edit it to make sense to read it, and take out all the ums and uhs and pauses and.
But
Does all
that's work we can do for you. Whereas if you're trying to
big part of the
write
value.
for it, you're trying to fix all of that yourself as you're taking your thoughts and putting it to paper. Just put your thoughts out there and let
Right.
us put those thoughts on
Right.
paper for
Let us
you.
clean it up. Yeah.
That's a great way to frame that, actually. I like that.
Just get it out, and then we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
pick what's useful.
One more thing too is that the more that you start to create content, it's not like you just create it, post it, and you never can post it ever again. No, like probably even the next year, we might repost this. Like
That's true.
That's the thing, right? Is the more content you're creating you're adding to your library, you can now start pulling it out whenever you want to. It's not
That's-
just a one and post and that's it.
I was going to use that term, content library.
Yeah.
That's key. It's really good.
It may or may not be the verbiage of when we make websites and
Well, and something we were talking about too, of
Label
like
for it.
you started making these, and I mean, me and you were talking the other day of how can we make our podcast better too, of like
Yeah.
the little things of like thinking about framing sound bites with
Yes.
keywords, and
Yeah.
like that's something we had to learn ourselves of as we're going through this, of like
Yeah.
Skylar talking about websites for a rant, but he didn't mention websites other than the first two sentences. So
Right.
then if like you don't hear those first two sentences, maybe you don't understand what the rest of what he's saying.
yeah, like trying to get the context to actually fit in 30 or 60 seconds instead of
And how you do that is you have to use those keywords and those reminding words of what the subject is later in your content, even though when you're writing a paper, you generally say someone's name and then you say he or him or she or her
Right.
later. Whereas you can't do
Yeah.
that if you're trying to then make a snippet from it later.
Well, pro tip, I have to say, that's bad practice even in writing.
It is.
I just wrote a business plan, and some of the feedback I got was you need to use explicit names more frequently. And to me, I would read that and I would say that's kind of dense, like I'm just being redundant.
right.
But people approaching documents are usually not just reading the whole thing start to finish either. They're scanning it, and wherever they end up, they need to understand the full context of what's being
Right.
discussed. So I got that from several sources who are like very experienced writers for marketing and business plans. I was like, okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So I just want to give props to Leah because she's put a lot of work into this thing we're doing right now. And that service that she started for us has turned into a service we're offering to our clients. And if you're just interested in learning more about it, reach out, have a conversation with us. You don't have to hire us, but let us give you some ideas. Let us give you some tips and share some ideas of how we would tackle your problem. Because we have some unique solutions that are looking at it from not just a marketing background. A lot of times people marketing are like, what's the story? How do we sell it? We're like, how do we sell you? What is your business? What is your story? And how do we figure out what that is? And how can we put that into content? We're taking a different approach that then is backed by a good website, a good cross-referencing of all of the different content. And that's where we're going to differentiate ourselves from the people that can, $99 social, like Skylar said, of like the super, like you can pay them $99 a month and they'll put content out every day for you. But is it good content? Probably not.
Yeah.
No.
So that's where we want to come in and be a part of that. And we wouldn't be here without you.
Stay tuned.